back to the Wrong Advice podcast. I'm your host, John Pacino, and I'm very excited to have Tyler Auld on the line with us today. Hey, Tyler, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing so great, thanks. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today. Can you just give our audience a little quick introduction?
Yeah. So my name's Tyler. I'm 28. I currently live in Brisbane, Australia, but I am originally from New Zealand, so I am native to New Zealand. My background is Māori, and also European. I've been here for about 8 years, done a whole lot of stuff throughout my life, been through a lot, and now I'm kind of just on the pathway to living out, I guess, my purpose, my passion, and just enjoying life. So,
Oh,
yeah.
that's amazing. I love that. I'm similarly doing the same thing. I would
Yeah.
imagine the last couple years with COVID has been a big impact for you, as it was equally for me. I'm just kind of sort of curious, starting from the beginning. So talk to me about like kind of where you grew up, what your life was like, your family life, kind of how like you went through school and like, university and those kind of things, and just like kind of how you got to, Wednesday for you, Tuesday for me, and having this conversation.
Where I am, yeah. Awesome. So I grew up in Wellington, New Zealand. I was originally born in Christchurch, but moved when my parents split up when I was about 3. It's interesting because when I meet people, sometimes they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened." But for me, it never really affected me. I really believe that my parents weren't meant to be together, and I'm so happy that they're not. It was just better for all parties. So yeah, that never really affected me, but I did move back home to Wellington where most of my mum's side of the family was. And so I was kind of raised mainly from my Māori side. So it was very cultural and things like that. We're not very traditional in a sense, but we obviously still have that kind of connection and all that kind of stuff, which was really good for me because a lot of, I guess, people of colour just in general, if they don't really know where they come from, they really struggle with their identity and things like that. So I never really had that issue, but at the same time, I am a lot lighter skinned, as you can tell. So, with that came bullying and, you're not really Māori and this, that and the other. But growing up, my childhood was actually really good. I was surrounded by a lot of love. I was the firstborn, so with that, I'm not sure if you're the firstborn or whoever's listening, if they're the firstborn, they'll know the pressures that comes with that.
I'm tied. I'm actually, I have a twin sister, so I'm like,
Oh, really?
I'm the middle.
Who was born first?
She was. I'm the middle child by 6 minutes.
Oh, there we go. So you missed that little.
Yeah, a little bit.
By a little bit, yeah. So I was the first grandchild, firstborn, so a lot of pressures. My family obviously had expectations in terms of what they wanted me to do when I got older. But not only that, I guess our dynamic being Māori is quite different. So generally we're raised by our grandparents more so than our parents.
Oh, interesting.
Our parents are there, but yeah, our grandparents obviously know more and have been through more. So I guess they take on that role. But also I remember when I was younger, we were living with my grandparents and my mum was like, "I'm moving out. What do you want to do? Do you want to stay or do you want to come with me?" And I was like, "I want to stay." So,
oh, wow.
So I stayed with my grandparents. I think I just had that bond with them. And they ultimately raised me alongside my mother. And my dad was obviously living overseas, so we're still very close as well. From there, yeah, I had to grow up quite young, to be honest, because obviously more grandkids came in. So I was the babysitter, but also I was getting taught, how to sort of hold the household, cleaning, cooking, looking after myself, that kind of thing, which looking back at it now, I'm so glad that I had that experience. A lot of people might say, "Oh, you grew up too quickly, you didn't really have a childhood, etc." But I think it really helped me kind of transition into where I am now. And I definitely wouldn't have been able to get through half the things I've been through had I not had that when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to high school. I was the tomboy. But I was sort of still a bit girly, but more tomboy. I gravitated more towards the guys and just hanging out with them because they were super chill. We could just joke around. It wasn't really too serious.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much, drama. In high school, I wasn't I don't know. I feel like it's really different for a lot of younger people these days. Everyone's so caught up in girls and boys and somebody liking somebody and that kind of stuff. And that was sort of the thing when we were in high school, but not so much. But even so,
Well,
like
it's because
I was the girl.
I would say it's
Uh,
it was pre-cell phones for us. So it was like pre-Instagram, like all that shit that's like
yeah,
ruining the
pre
world.
social
Yeah.
media. Yeah, it was more like go outside, come back when the lights are on, hang out with the neighborhood kids, like
Hmm.
play games. Like
Yeah.
that was pretty much my childhood. Don't even care about the way you looked. Like I look at photos and I'm wearing like jaggy green fat pants. I don't know if they're called like sweatpants.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have like a blue colored t-shirt that doesn't match. You know, like you just wouldn't care when you were
Yeah.
younger. And I had like a bowl cut. Like people thought I was a boy at one point. Like I was really living life back then.
Yeah.
So I guess there is a bit more pressure, but yeah, in high school I was more the girl guy. Like I wasn't somebody you would date. I was more just someone you'd hang out with and have fun with and whatever, you know. And I didn't actually realize that that affected me until I got older. But also, everyone in high school, if anyone's like listening to this from high school, everyone in high school, you won't like later. Like you'll look back at them and be like, ooh, why did I like that person? So don't even stress.
Yeah.
And then you'll elevate as well. So don't even worry.
Totally.
Yeah. And then from there, I went to uni. I was the first in my family to go to university and graduate. And it was kind of like a kind of preconceived path. I don't know if that's the word, but like it was like a given that I was going to go to uni because I was the firstborn and like, you know, the family wanted me to go to uni and like uni was the way you should go. A part of me like kind of knew at that time that I didn't want to go to uni, but then a part of me was like
Kind of
also wanted to go. It was like, it was kind of like I wanted to, but I didn't. And then I had to, but I didn't also at the same time. So I went to uni. Don't regret it, but you know, the debt that comes with that, love that.
Totally. Love it.
Yeah. They're chasing me for money every year. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that, and it's funny because I'd always known what I wanted to do when I was younger. Like I just always had this like feeling that because I'd always watch like, so if people don't know, I've always wanted to be like on TV and film and like helping people, you know, with their lives and creating businesses. Like I pretty much want to create an empire. That's like the overall goal.
It's awesome.
And so I kind of always knew that when I was younger. Like I would watch TV, like MTV and E Channel and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that one day. But I'd never voiced it because I was super self-conscious, like when I was younger. And it's funny because like my life kind of took me on a different pathway, but then kind of went full circle and brought me right back to this moment doing the things that I want to do. But yeah, I went to uni. I went to originally study TV and radio.
Oh, cool.
And then I ended up going to Auckland in New Zealand, which is another city, to study. I was actually bullied at university.
What?
Funny enough.
That's
yeah,
not
I was
funny.
bullied at uni. Like, but it's like, come on, we were like in uni, like
Yeah,
we really should be past
for
this.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I got bullied there, and I also struggled like being away from home a little bit. So young, I was like 18, 19, I think. And back then, like you think you know it all, but you don't.
True.
And I was a huge partier back then, so like it was like, should I eat and pay rent or should I go out and party?
Go out and party.
Go out and party. Yeah, it was my thing, and I'll just make it work somehow. Yeah, so then I was only there for 6 months, and then I moved back home. There were some other things that kind of made me move back home, aka like a guy and like issues and stuff like that. It was so not healthy, but
Yeah.
we might get to that later.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I moved back home and I wanted to study the exact same thing, but unfortunately they didn't have the exact course. So I did something similar, which was PR and media. So it was like kind of the same trajectory, but not. But I hated it because it was all theory-based. It wasn't practical, whereas my previous one was practical. So I don't regret it, but I really should have stayed. But, you know, life obviously
Happens.
things in the works and happens, yeah. So, and now here I am. But actually how I got here, I was 21. No, I was 20. And I was working at a job. I don't know if you guys have it. You're in New York, right?
Yeah, New Jersey.
New Jersey, yeah. Cotton On? Do you know Cotton On? Cotton On Body Factory? No? Oh, okay. Maybe you don't have it there, but Cotton On, it's like a retail store,
Okay.
huge clothing store. I worked there and I'd been there for like 4 years. And I just came home one day and I always knew I was going to move to Australia because my dad lived there and I loved it. Um, and I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is not my life. This is not what I want. Fuck this, basically.
That's
Like, I
awesome.
swear, sorry.
You absolutely can.
Fuck this, basically. Yeah. And then I spoke to my mum first just to kind of get her thoughts on it because she's unwell. So I didn't want to leave her, if she needed me kind of thing. So I talked to her and I was like, Mum, I'm thinking about moving to Australia. How do you feel about it? And she was like, go, live your life, do your thing. And then literally came home from work, fuck this, booked a flight. 2 months later, because I wanted to have my 21st back home, told everyone this was going to be my farewell slash 21st, and then I was packing it up and going. Funny thing as well, hadn't finished uni, and I also booked a 6-week trip to Europe before I left. So I don't know how the hell I even found the money for that, but I made it work.
Resourcefulness, yeah.
Yeah, made it work, and then here I am in Australia for 8 years.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
So very similarly, I grew up not with my grandparents, but my grandmother lived with us basically. I want to say from like when I was 6 or 7. So like she lived in the house with me, my brother, my sister, my parents, and
yeah,
was like picking us up from sport practices and whatever we're doing extracurricular at our friend's house and stuff. So it's kind of nice. It's funny to have like that kind of generation be so involved because like you said they know so much more, and I think that like I would be a wholly different human being had I not been you know dually raised by my parents and my grandmother. And it's like one of the things that I'm so immensely happy that I got to experience in life because both my grandfathers died before I was born, and my other grandmother passed away when I was like 3 or 4, very very young.
yeah.
So she was like the only anchor to that sort of generation that I had, and it was nice. And it's something that I think people take for granted nowadays. A lot more
Mm.
people are grandparents at a much younger age. Like my grandmother was, I think, closer to her late 60s. Yeah, when I was born. So it's like different now because like my parents are younger and whatever. It's very interesting. I am
Yeah.
curious though. Like, so I'm not 100% familiar with it's Maui, right?
Maori?
Maori, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
With your background, it is like the Australian equivalent of Native American. Is that correct? Right. Yeah.
that's right.
I
Yeah,
remember learning a lot about this in, I guess, was it 2008 when you guys had the Olympics?
I think so.
2000? It might have been 2000. Oh my
I
God. It might have been like a million years ago.
know, I'm like, oh, that's a bit far
Yeah.
back.
I don't even remember, but I remember learning a lot about it, and kind of how the similarities between like the Native Americans and here over here and your ethnicity. It was very like shocking to learn how poorly like your group were like kind of like ridiculed and bullied even. And there was that one really amazing athlete. She was like track and field star. She got like 3 gold medals or something. She came in with the torch, and I remember her talking about it on like, I don't know, USA Today or Good Morning America, one of those shows. And I was like, it's so
Yeah.
insane to me that this shit still kind of happens. Did any of that stuff have like a big impact on you, like growing up, like being, different, aka quote unquote, not white?
Um, it didn't. I didn't realize it until I got, I think, around uni, because one, I was getting bullied for not being as Māori as everybody else
Oh,
because I
right.
didn't speak the language. I also think it was because I was a bit pretty, but whatever.
Yeah. Haters are going to hate, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, not really until then. And then as I got older, a lot of like traumas started to come out that I didn't really know were traumas at the time. But when I look back at it, I remember I was hanging out with a friend and she was Māori as well, and she had had a really rough upbringing. And she hated the fact that she was Māori.
Oh, wow.
And like I took offense to that at one point because I was like, how can you like hate it? But then when I got older and I was going through these things, like I started to develop a little bit of a hate towards it, only because, people look down on us and we go through certain things differently than I guess white people, I guess, in the sense of like upbringing and like what we go through and what we have to endure. So it did to a degree. And then there was a point where like I didn't really want to be identified as Māori, which is so sad to say because I love my culture and my people. but you just obviously have to go through the motions. But yeah, it did affect me a little bit, but not on a grand scale.
Oh, that's nice. I mean,
Like some people kind of don't know who they are without it, whereas I feel like I sort of still did have that connection to my ancestors and Māoridom and stuff like that, so it didn't hit me as hard,
yeah, that's
I
nice.
guess.
I mean, I give you credit for that because you're kind of like one foot in one world, one foot in the other world. So like you're not, you know, Maori enough to be Maori. You're not white enough to be white. It's like
Yeah.
has the makings of a very good movie. You should probably start writing that.
Mm. I'll
um,
take that idea down. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. So I'm super
Actually,
curious.
but true though. Yeah,
Yeah,
true. Actually,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's like the so I grew up in like a very fairly affluent upper middle class neighborhood. Like a lot of my friends' parents worked on Wall Street and owned their own businesses, and it was mostly like there was no. I want to say it was like 50% like Italian Americans and 50% like Jewish Americans. So like the
right.
only real differentiation there is based on like religion and whether your grandparents were from Germany or Italy. That was literally the only thing
Yeah,
separating us. There was no giant ethnic sort of background difference in really anything. Everyone could trace their parents back to like the Mayflower, and there was
yeah.
nothing like that growing up. And it's just crazy to me, especially because you're saying like you didn't have any issues with it until college when people are older. It's like, wouldn't you think that would be like when people would be much more tolerant of other people? Like that's crazy.
And it's also interesting that it was from my own people,
Yeah.
not necessarily, European. Um, it's something, and some people will probably hate me for saying this in my community, but it's such a big thing. Like we're trying to be connected as a group, but then we segregate ourselves within the group, and it makes no sense. Like
Yeah.
Māoris can be quite jealous of other Māoris, especially if they're doing well.
Mm.
And that's obviously because they haven't decided to go down that pathway and they decided to take up things like drugs or alcohol or gangs or whatever. It's actually funny too, because when I was growing up, when I was younger, my family were actually living in a really higher end suburb.
Mm-hmm.
We were the only brown family. I didn't know this because I didn't notice it at all, but we were the only brown family in that area
Oh wow.
at the time. Yeah. And then my pop was a cop, and then stuff happened. He obviously retired from the force, and then he went to start his own business, and I don't know what happened, but it didn't work out. And then we had to move because we weren't able to upkeep it.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I've been told. I don't really know if
Yeah,
it's
you were young. Yeah.
100%, but this is what I've been told. Yeah. And then we ended up moving to a lower socioeconomical area. And then we've pretty much been there my whole life. But yeah, originally we did start in a very nice area and then ended up on the other side, which was fun. It was an experience in itself, that
I
area.
feel like, I wanted for nothing as a child. I had two very hardworking parents. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
like we were rich. We're, more than above average. Like, there was never an instance where like I had to struggle with, getting sports equipments or anything like that. And
Yeah.
I think even in the instances where like people that I grew up with maybe didn't have money or had an exorbitant amount of money, I felt like my community was super good about like being very normal about life. And it didn't get till like later on in life in my 20s when I started to realize how there were some fairly dramatic differences in the socioeconomic livings
Yeah.
of people that I grew up with.
It's
So
funny you say that because the area that I lived in, when I tell people, it's considered the hood in a sense, I guess, not as intense, I would say, as in America, but it's
yeah,
considered the hood. But when I lived there, like it never felt like that. Like it just felt normal. Like it wasn't like you would see drugs and guns and like everything, on the streets. Like we would be able to roam around and hang out and just be kids, but you would know like, oh, that's a gang member or this person, stay away from that person. Like, but it was
yeah,
I never felt unsafe or anything. It just felt normal. But when people hear it, the name, they're like, oh my God, you lived there? Like, how was it? And it's like, it was literally just normal. And
yeah,
most of the kids I went to school with, yeah, their families were in gangs, but like were the nicest people ever. Like I would just see them and be like, hey, and they're like, how do you know them? Like, why are
yeah,
you talking to them? And it's like, it's normal people. They just have a patch or they just went through some stuff and they like take alcohol and drugs. Like, you
Yeah,
know, it
like
wasn't really
normal life
normal.
shit. Yeah, you know, it's
Yeah.
you look at like a place like New York City. Like when I was a kid, probably from the early to mid '80s to like the mid '90s, like New York City was terrible. Like the amount of times that I went into the city to go to like a Yankee game or to go see a Broadway show, like it was very infrequent. It didn't get like quote unquote cleaned up till sometime in the '90s, like where like a lot of the rundown buildings got knocked down and new things went up, and like they addressed the homeless problem and the drug problem. And there was like so many things. I mean, like every major metropolitan area in the world goes through these things, and
yes.
it's just kind of like a factor of life. So I'm curious, what do you do like work wise now? Like you said you're like living out your dreams. So like, what do you do?
So I do a lot of things. I've had like, I would say probably like 17 jobs, I think I counted, or maybe more.
Wow.
Yeah. I do not like working for people. I don't hate it initially, but then I get to like, well, now it's like the 2-week mark and I'm like, fuck this. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But I've been working towards this for quite a while, and I think I just got to the point where I started to really believe that I can do it, and I was just like, screw it, quit your job, let's just go in, let's just do it, get it done. So at the moment, I've created a brand which is called Five-Headed Lady, and the reason it's called Five-Headed Lady is because I used to get bullied for my forehead. You can't see it now because it's covered, but I have quite a large forehead.
Okay.
And it used to be the only thing some like people would bully me about. And so it used to really rain on me, like my self-confidence and stuff. But now as I'm older, I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I have a big forehead and what?
Yeah, big deal.
So that's why I've created it, Five-Headed Lady. That's what it refers to. It's pretty much like a fuck you to everybody who like bullied me and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
So Five-Headed Lady, I've got the YouTube series, and there's a few series under there, which is kind of, I say, my own little show and podcast. And then under that, I also do TV, film, commercials, dancing, modeling, brand work as well. And then I'm just about to launch my first product, which is called Unmasked. And that's also linked to Five-Headed Lady with a series that I've got about unmasking. And that's about unmasking life experiences that have, either caused trauma or have changed their lives drastically, whether it's negative or positive, and just going through those motions. So Unmasked is pretty much a card game, which is aimed at getting you to unmask all the bullshit that you tell yourself that's not you, which can be influenced by society, your parents, siblings, uncles, friends, whatever, and really pulling out all of that to understand who you are authentically and what you really want. Because I feel like a lot of people say they want certain things but really don't, but they believe that they do, but it's not really who they are inside. They're just kind of following the norm.
Wow.
Or how it should be.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, so I'm launching that tonight.
Oh my God, no, literally today?
Literally today.
Oh my God, congratulations. That's so fucking cool.
You.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is like a huge day for you, and I get an hour of your time. Oh my God, I feel so privileged. That's incredible.
I've also got to go down and do a photo shoot too after this.
That's so fucking awesome.
It's a lot today.
I am actually a photographer, so I,
nice.
wish you well. That's so fucking cool. Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm super curious to like ask the tough question is like, what was it about like something that transpired in your life somewhere that kind of, I mean, there has to be like a cause to this like unmasked brand idea, etc. So like I'm sort of curious something like what was like the catalyst for creating this? Or was there more than one?
There's like, it's like a whole thing that just kind of ties in. So I'll try and narrow it down as much as I can. But when I pretty much this whole journey of like unmasking and healing and stuff really started, I think, when I was 21 and I moved to Australia. I think without realizing it, I was sort of running away in a sense, but I did want to move, but I was sort of running away from things back home because I'd been through so much crap back home that I just wanted to about it. So I came to Australia. I didn't know at the time, but I sort of had an idea that I was depressed. I became suicidal. I never, ever liked drugs, like ever, until I moved to Sydney in Australia. And if people have been to Sydney, then you'll know what it's like. It's like drug central.
Oh, wow. Really? Didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, they have a place called King's Cross. I don't know if you've heard of it. And it was like notorious back in the day for like gangbangers and drugs and stuff. And like people in Australia, and they may hate me for saying this too, people in Australia love drugs.
Really?
Like they love cocaine. So cocaine is like alcohol. So if you go out, most people, not most people, I shouldn't say that, sorry, but a lot of people here would rather be on coke than drink.
Wow.
It's like their alcohol. Yeah.
That's really wild.
Yeah.
It's like all of Sydney is
changed now.
I would say Sydney's like Vegas of Australia.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. And then Brisbane is like LA, sort of. Yeah. Yeah, so I was then exposed to drugs. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was doing it to like kind of shield my pain that I was feeling.
Numb yourself.
And I was partying a lot more, like I was just drinking like all the time. And then I started to notice that like my mood would just always be down, like I'd not want to get up and like all this kind of stuff. And I was like, what's going on? And in New Zealand, mental health, it wasn't a big thing. Like you don't talk about it, you just deal with it. And that's why we have a high suicide rate in New Zealand. So going through that, I didn't really talk about it. So I was just like, oh, I'll just figure it out. And then it got to the point where I had my first anxiety attack. I was on the way to work, actually. I just started a new job and I was on my way to work and I started thinking all these thoughts and I couldn't stop them. And it was like, what if you just jumped in front of a train? Nobody cares about you. Nobody loves you. Like, just do it. I was literally about to get off the train and then just go and walk in front of it. Like, that's how bad it got.
Wow.
And then I had the anxiety attack. I ran to the bathroom at the train station and I just like bawled my eyes out. I called work and I was like, I can't come in. I was like hyperventilating. They're like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. Like trying to mask it. Like, I'm fine. And then I ended up going home. And then what happened after that? Oh, I almost overdosed on drugs. I went to a festival and I took more than I should have. And then I went to the emergency like tent thing because I was like, I don't feel good. Like, this is different. And so I went there and I literally passed out. I don't even remember, but apparently I passed out. And then I woke up with all these people all around me. And the weirdest thing is I had my friend's bag and I was more concerned about her bag because I didn't want to lose it. And I was like, where's my bag? Like with all these people around me and they're like, it's right here. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And I literally I don't even know what I was thinking, but that happened. And then from there, I went to Europe, partied the whole time, came back from Europe, was sitting there and I was literally in so much debt. It was insane. And usually I'm pretty good with money. So like seeing it, I was just like, what the hell? I literally bawled my eyes out and I was like looking at the bathroom because my flatmates had a medical problem as well. So she had all these pills in her cabinet. So my thought was, I'll just go pop pills and just see what happens, hoping that I would not be here. But interesting enough, that very moment, I was like crying my eyes out and I don't know what came over me, but my friend messaged me and he's like, are you okay? Like out of the blue. And I was also talking to another friend and I just told him, I don't want to be here, haha, or something like as a joke. And then he like instantly picked up on it and he was like, are you okay? What's going on? He was like blowing up my phone. He's like, don't you do anything? We love you. Like, he just kept trying to reassure me. And then my other friend, he picked up on something too and called me straight away. And then we talked it out. And then from that moment, like I was pretty much fine. But that's kind of where it started because then I started to realize a lot of my mood changes or me being upset or sad came from men, like dating. And I was dating the wrong people. Like, no, and I would be like, nobody wants me, nobody loves me. Like, I just wanted to be loved pretty much. And then I realized that actually stemmed from my childhood. Not that I wasn't loved, but there were certain things that happened in my childhood where I didn't feel love. And it's like I held on to those. And that was kind of the catalyst for, you're not loved, you're not worthy, nobody wants you, rah, 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 rah.
Totally, yeah.
And it's really funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's funny
Yeah.
because I look back on it now and like my dad wasn't here physically, but he was the best dad ever. Like if I could talk to him about whatever, like boys and stuff, he would be there,
Mm-hmm.
you know? My mum, love her. We've talked about it. She wasn't the most affectionate mother. That's my family. We were never the type to be like, I love you, or hugs or kisses or anything like that. Whereas I'm a very loving person.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of need that in a sense. But I know that, she did. And where was I going with this? Oh, my uncles. I was very close with my uncles. One of them passed away in a car accident, which really hit me as well. But he was kind of my male figure. He was the one that actually showed me how a man should treat a woman and how a man should be with his family, or just in general with life. Like his passion for life really rubbed off on me. And that's what I've realized only like probably a couple months ago, that I had lost that a little bit and like forgot about it. But pretty much he had shown me that, but I didn't see that. All I saw, or all I held on to, was the negative stuff that I would see, which was like my grandparents arguing all the time, or like really bringing each other down, or like my mum having issues with her partner at the time, and like that really affecting me and all this kind of stuff. And so all that transpired into then me being depressed, anxiety, drug use, alcohol, because I always said that I would never be with someone physically abusive because I had seen it growing up. But then I realized I actually ended up with abusive people, but more emotionally and mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of what happened, is I was just going through these motions of going with these guys that didn't even want to be with me. They just wanted to use me and then, discard me kind of thing. And then that's how I came to, well, actually, I was in a relationship not long ago-ish. It's complicated, but it's hope.
It always is, yeah.
Yeah, but he really pulled everything out of me. Like, he was great, but there was also so much like manipulation, toxicity that I didn't even realize because it just seemed so great to me, but it really wasn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, he pulled literally everything out. Well, that relationship, I should say, for me to then have to work through and heal all that stuff that had pretty much transpired from my childhood.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's like remarkably candid on your part, and I obviously commend you for that. I guess New Zealand is in a lot of ways like sort of like, men in nowadays. Like, I'm pretty vocal proponent for therapy. Like, I've been going to therapy. I think it's like the best thing that I ever did for myself. You learn so much about yourself. You learn like past traumas, things that happened in your past that like you may not have even realized were like a trigger point for you, that have now manifested itself in other ways. And it's super interesting. And it's just like, if you're like it's cliche, but like if you're like a white guy in your 20s or 30s from like an affluent area, like it's not okay for you to be like very emotional and or like talk about your feelings or like whether you're struggling or anything. It's just very much like you have white privilege, you have like an inherent leg up in the world, and it's not okay for you to struggle. And I think that that's like one of the two greatest things about like the time we live in now is like the conversation around mental health is getting like so much better. And it's like I'm the first one to stand up and raise my hand and say like, I go to therapy, it's great, like everyone should do it. And it didn't used to be like that, like even like a year ago, I feel like, or like 5 years ago. And it's been super important. Like all of these amazing conversations, like Simone Biles at the Olympics, like all these things are starting to have like this tipping point around mental health, which, you look at like all of the toxicity that is surrounding social media. And while we are totally connected as a people, like we are instant communication to hundreds, if not thousands of people at the touch of a button, it's also like very lonely. Like if you're not, if you're not married, if you don't have a significant other, it's like very easy to feel lost in the shuffle. It's very easy to feel like you're, kind of just floating out there in space. And I think it's one of the reasons why it's kind of a great opportunity for people to like kind of be able to talk about things, because you just get into this kind of mindset where like, no one can relate to me. No one is experiencing the things I'm experiencing. And then when you talk to someone and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, like there are hundreds of thousands of millions of people who feel exactly like you. It's like it makes you feel like like you're not crazy. I also think it's
hard for being a woman as well, because you should have things on a certain timeline. You should have a man, you should have kids. So if you don't have a man by this age, like nobody wants you, that kind of thing. And I'm just like, oh, I'm so sick of hearing about it.
Well, you're super young, but like I talk about that all the time on my podcast because my life is completely different from everyone I know. And at 36 on Friday, I don't have a wife. I don't have a kid. I don't have a house. Like I have nothing. Right. And I have like built this really great life for myself. It's completely.
You have nothing to society.
Correct.
But you have everything to you.
Correct. Yeah. But I spent so much of my life doing the thing that society said I should do. I should go to high school and go to college and get that first job and then get the second job and then get the car and then the fucking watch and then like do all these fucking things that I'm supposed to do because Instagram's telling me I need to do it or society's telling me I need to do it. And meanwhile, I never once stopped and for 4 seconds it was like, dude, what are you like having fun or like you happy?
Do I actually want it?
Yeah. And I didn't do that for the longest time. And it wasn't until like COVID and like this, like I lost my job in the middle of the pandemic where I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like I'm chasing after something that I don't even know what it is anymore. I'm like pursuing a career and like a life that I don't even think I want. And it wasn't until you're put into a position where you have no choice but to like make hard decisions that I like figured out exactly who I was. And that was like, 34, 35 years old. And it's like the most rewarding / terrifying / amazing thing because it's like I feel more at peace and comfortable with myself. But there is millions of people who don't like think that they're doing the right thing at the right time. And it's like, it's so annoying when I talk to someone and they're like, well, I'm 30, so I can't go be a painter or I can't start a podcast because, I'm a teacher and I've got to work all day. It's like, it's that level of mindset that like no one would ever do anything in life. It's super sad. But like you've managed to take like a plethora of like childhood and young adolescent drama and turn it into like something like remarkable. And I'm just kind of curious, like, was it therapy in your early 20s? Well, like, what was it that was like the catalyst, the thing that gave you the strength to kind of be able to like pick yourself up off the mat and be like, I got this?
Didn't do therapy. I tried it. It wasn't really for me. And I think that's the thing, that you need to find what works for you.
Oh, totally.
I did hypnotherapy. I don't know if you know much about it. Yeah. So pretty much hypnotherapy, they put you in a hypnotic sort of state, and it's not like where you see people walking around like a chicken. You're not going to do that. But they pretty much take you back. So they say there is a time period from when you're born to when you're 7. It could also be when you're in the womb, where something has happened that has then triggered and all these things to transpire. And so they put you in a hypnotic state and they start asking you questions. Pretty much the first thing that comes to mind is what was the trigger or what was the age that something occurred, and then you have to go in and figure out what it is. And when you find that thing, and it could be something so simple, like you wouldn't even think that has then transpired into what it has. But it could be a situation, they pretty much take you back into that situation, but from a bird's eye view. So you can see it from an outside perspective, not necessarily one-on-one how you were in the moment. And then you start to see like things from a different perspective. And they'll ask you questions like while you're in there, and then get you to kind of pull that stuff out. And the point is to get it from your unconscious mind, not your subconscious mind, because your subconscious is like your wall.
What's the same thing? Unconscious and subconscious are the same. I learned that because I had a I had a subconscious mind coach on my podcast. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, she was awesome. Highly recommend you listen to her.
I need to watch that one.
She's wild. Amazing human being. Yeah, sorry, continue.
No, it's pretty much, that thing that's in the back of your head, and then you have that thing that's in front saying no, but it's like yes. Yeah. So that one, they pull it out, and that's pretty much the thing.
That's amazing.
That's created it.
I've learned so much.
So that was it.
Yeah, I've learned so much about the subconscious, unconscious mind, and I think it's partially the catalyst for my success, man. I gotta fucking stop saying catalyst. It is.
Yeah, that's your favorite word.
I know. It's like I haven't said it in 7 years. I've said it 55 fucking times on the podcast today. No, but I was talking to this woman, Betsy, and inside of me somewhere, I don't know where the fuck it came from, I have this utter belief that I'm going to be successful no matter what I do in life, and it's going to work out. And it would have been playing professional sports or fucking being a photographer. Like, whatever it was going to be, I am going to be a success doing it. It might not be the first day. It might be the 555th fucking year, whatever it'll be. I'll be successful. And learning about how that deep-seated thought process consciously allows you to build yourself towards these goals was something that I had no clue about. And it truly makes a lot of sense, because I wouldn't be doing the things now today that I'm doing had I not believed that I was capable of it. It sounds like you have a very similar experience, because you're obviously doing things that you probably couldn't imagine 5 years ago, and now enacting these amazing things.
My future, like the way that I see my future, is way bigger than this present moment. So like if, for example, I'm really fearful and I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't do that, or like whatever you think when you're fearful, I just have that in mind, and that is way bigger than that fear that I have, and I just do it. Like, I don't know, I just pull it out. Like, just what I want to achieve is way more important to me than being in this moment, being fearful or not doing it. And so I just keep it pushing.
I love that. And similarly, like the fear of the unknown is always going to like push you to not try something or not take a risk.
But it's also the most like funnest part of it too.
100%.
Like, it's scary as fuck, but so cool.
Because
like
so rewarding.
Literally moved to Thailand and then somehow ended up at India at one point. Like, I just did whatever the hell I wanted. And yeah, it was scary as hell, and I had no idea how I was going to survive half the time, but I just did it. And like, now I have stories. Can't wait to tell them. Back in my day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I think that's amazing. You also, so like, we have very similar paths in that, like, we've made dramatic changes in our lives, but you were able to enact yours at a much younger age than me. And I'm just kind of wondering, you know, like I often say, like, oh, would 25-year-old John have been able to like recognize all of these creative outlets that I have uncovered that I'm in love with at that age? Like, would I have been able to have enacted that level of change, that level of growth 10 years earlier, 5 years earlier, at any point earlier in my life? And I often say, no, I don't think it would be possible, because you need that length of time, those lessons to learn to get you to the point to change. What about you? Do you think you could have like enacted real life change? Do you think you could have stopped partying and doing drugs at like 18 versus 20? I mean, you were just such a young person. I'm just kind of curious, like, if you think that you could have made a change earlier, made these alterations to yourself at a younger age, but you were so fucking young, so I'm going to say probably not.
I think everything that I've been through has brought me to this moment.
Yeah.
So I think there's nothing that, like, yes, I've been through a lot of stuff, but there's nothing that I would change. And like, some people, for example, have been through like, you know, sexual abuse and things like that, but they can take that and use it to do better and push further, and instead of using, you know, but the victim mentality or letting it bring them down. Like, yes, it's a shit thing, but it happened for a reason. You cannot change it, and you just have to move forward and just do better. Like, say, fuck that, fuck you, I'm going to go and do what I want to do. And I think, I don't think, like, it's hard to say yes or no, because yes, I probably could have, but I wouldn't have had all that knowledge and this life experience and gone through all of that stuff to then bring me to this point. So yes and no. Yeah. But my resilience was there. So yeah.
That's awesome. I think the other thing is like being like I'm going to use the term like solo entrepreneur, like we're individuals making like kind of our own path. We're not relying on other people. Yeah. It's like, I'm a very positive person. I am full on, like, everything's great. Like, I am going to like overboard my life with positivity. Like, you still have good days and bad days. Like, I can go from having an amazing morning to getting bad news in the afternoon and like losing a job or not getting chosen for a project. Like, all of these things are not like 100% in either direction, right? Life is never going to be 100% great and 100% terrible. You're always going to kind of live somewhere in that middle. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned kind of over the last year is that if you're able to identify something in life that you want to do that will make you happy, every day will be a good day, even when you're going through shitty things. And that's like one of the few things that I like feel happy about, is that like even when I'm having a bad day, even when shit is like just falling apart and I just want to stay in bed and it's miserable and I'm depressed and I just don't want to do anything, I'm still like fighting the thing and like moving towards the goals that I want, even when it's not going well.
100%. Also on that, even if you don't know what you want to do, just try it. And even that's fun. Like just try something different. Like I've tried so many jobs, it's ridiculous.
17 is a record, I think.
17, I think it's like that. Yeah, 17, something like that. But just try it. And then if you don't like it, leave. Go find another one. Like it's really not that big of a deal. People make it out to be such a big thing. It might be massive in America. I don't know. Here it's not. Like, well, I don't think so. I do it. And I've had no issue finding a job or doing something that I need to, you know, be able to survive or whatever. There's excitement in just trying something new. And then if you don't like it, there's excitement in going to find out what that might be somewhere else.
Yeah, people put a lot of pressure on, like, you know, like let's say for argument's sake, you have a business degree, like you got a normal business job out of college, and like people will put a lot of pressure on, like, I need to be successful in the thing that I spent 4 years trying to learn to do, even if it's something that you hate. Like I know
I don't use my degree.
Right, yeah, neither do I. I mean, it was the best 4 years of my life. I had so much fun, but to say that like that burdensome debt that I accrued was worthwhile would be a lie, right? Like there was nothing that I took out of that experience from like an intellect perspective that I think would like practically change my life, right? Like I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not like using a high level degree that warranted me spending $100,000 to learn, right? So I'm with you on that.
It's funny too, because my family wanted me to doctor or a lawyer. Standard. First of all, would not be a doctor. And second of all, I'd probably just throw everyone in jail. So I don't know if I would be a good lawyer. But I forgot what I was going to say with this.
University.
No, I lost it.
Okay.
Yeah, I lost it.
I was going to say the one thing that like I think that's mostly important is that like there's so many hours in a day. Like if you work 9 to 5, from 7 to 10, you can be an artist. From 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., you can be a DJ. Like there are an infinite number of things that you could do with your time. And like I'm pretty comfortable saying that like there's like a 50 to 55% of the population who enjoy what they're doing for a living. It's not 100%. So like fill your time up doing things that make you happy and not necessarily things that pay your bills. They can be completely separate.
I think America did a study on it, and it was like 73% of people hate their job.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger was saying something about it, but yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. I'm just like, I know you have to pay bills, but so do I.
Yeah.
Like I have an investment property, so it's got a mortgage and all that crap with it, and then I obviously rent, and I've got my lifestyle. You just make it work. But I think also people are so consumed with how it looks to other people. Like if they left their, say, management job and then went and got a cleaning job, like they're so encapsulated by what that person's going to say, like, oh, you're a cleaner. Like, yeah, I'm a cleaner.
It's perception versus reality. Like the perception is like, as long as my Instagram says I'm doing well, I'm doing well. And the reality is that life is a lot more complicated than the things that we show online.
Oh, 100%. And social media is a lie. I see so many people editing, like we all know this, but like you see so many people editing like Lamborghinis and stuff in their photos, and they don't even own the bloody Lamborghinis. So don't even like look at that stuff and think it's legit, because it's so not. Yeah,
it's a big show. And like at the end of the day, the people that go through that level of like
well, they're not really self-aware, I believe. Like they really haven't deep dived into that.
It is a level of narcissism that I just truly can't relate. I'm a pretty lay it out on the line, I am who I am kind of person, and I just couldn't imagine like buying followers or like whatever it might be that just like is remarkable to me.
I don't even buy coffee. Like, why would I buy followers?
Yeah, right.
Nope, not happening.
I like to spend the last bit of every podcast doing sort of like a rapid fire question. Some are super easy, some are like a little bit more in depth, but you know, first one or two things that come to mind, whatever is easiest for you. But first things first is
no pressure.
No pressure. What's your favorite book?
Oh, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck
Oh,
is
so
one. There's
good.
two.
Yeah.
I actually love that book, and I just love. And one more was 50 Cent's book.
Get Rich or Die Trying.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was actually really good. Would highly recommend.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, that's a hard one, but I do love the Fast and Furious franchise.
Yeah. No complaints. I'm with you on that. They're
Yeah.
very, very entertaining.
I mean, the last one, they went a bit overboard, but the originals, yeah.
Totally overboard. They definitely had to go to
Nolan's going to
space.
fucking space in a car. Like, what the fuck are you on about? Stupid.
What's your favorite food?
Anything chocolate.
I mean, food, sweets. Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
anything.
Do you believe in an afterlife?
Yes,
What's your
100%.
What's your biggest fear?
Not living out my purpose.
That's pretty good. What's your biggest dream?
Ooh. To be the first Maori female billionaire in the world.
Fuck yeah. There's none?
Yeah. There's none. Okay, funny story. All the millionaires and billionaires in New Zealand are white males.
Wow. Well, male part I get,
Yeah.
but
There's only one guy who has just been deemed billionaire, and he is a white male, but he actually grew up in the suburb over from mine, which is considered more hood than my hood. So that's a positive. But yes, I would like to be the first Māori female billionaire.
fucking love that.
Yeah.
What inspires you?
My future self.
Oh, I like that too. What gives you confidence?
Oh. Dressing up, showing up as my best every day.
Cool. What's one piece of advice? What's the best piece of advice someone's ever given you?
Just do it.
Are you happy?
Yes.
Okay, last question. What's something that you
If you asked me that like 6 months ago, I would have not been able to answer that.
That's okay. If you asked me that like 3 hours ago, I would have said no. So that's fine. Last question. What is something that you've recently consumed? Like it could be a movie, podcast, TV show, book you've read, literally anything that you've recently consumed that you would like to recommend for everyone hearing you on the podcast today.
I actually just watched the interview with, I think it's London Real and Elena Cardone.
Okay.
And I actually loved that interview. Yeah, so I'll jump on that.
Okay, cool. Tyler, I think you're fucking awesome. I am so appreciative of your time today. We did that in a land speed record, and I'm very, 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 very thankful for your time. I have a very cheesy line. If you've been on my podcast, you're part of my family now. So thank you so much for coming on, and definitely look forward to doing this again sometime next year. And just thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I actually had a blast. So I'll definitely want to chat more because I feel like there's so much more we can deep dive into.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much.